Hi, everyone. I'm Mama Rita Money, and I just want to welcome you tonight and say thank you for showing up here tonight. I am super excited because what time is it? It's time to feel good about money. I'm going to have you see our show intro, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I am super excited to have you here tonight. I wanted to share, I was having a very special guest. Her name is Lisa Dion. And Lisa tonight had, unfortunately, a loss. And so I just want to give my condolences to her, and just, my heart goes out to her. So sometimes things change in life. And actually, it's going to resonate a little bit with what I'm going to share with you tonight. I figured tonight I will share a little bit more about myself. I don't know that I've ever really done this on the show. And what I decided to do is, anytime you're in a pinch, right, we're going to turn lemons into lemonade. So I started thinking, what could I do for you? What could I share with you? I want to share more about what I do. I'm going to share some tips, books, but one of the best things I get to share with you is my goddaughter, who really has worked along with me side by side in growing Flourish and developing Mama Rita. And there's no one better than, I'm going to say she's my family. She, in a pinch, she's there. She's been my right hand and my sounding wall. And she's a millennial, and she is kicking it and having an awesome life. And I can't wait for you to meet my dear goddaughter, Heidi. And so before we get to meet her, I'm going to share a little bit of a story about me and what has inspired me to do It's Time to Feel Good About Money. Really looking at this time period, COVID, some people are flourishing and others are struggling, a lot of others. And so I want to really acknowledge that piece, but I also want to acknowledge the fact that hope is an awesome driver for when things change in your life. So I want to ask you a really empowering question. How many of us were born to lead a life of love, inspiration, and positive influence? So I want you to take you back in time, probably around the 1960s Italy. And imagine a young, newly married couple, and they're coming to discover a new country, America. And they get married, and they get to go on this amazing cruise ship. No, not amazing cruise ship, not like today. They get to take a ship to move far away from their family and friends. Everything that you know. Can you imagine that? Leaving it all without knowing the language, and then starting a brand new family to have a new and amazing start. That story is not my story, but the story of my amazing parents. They came from Italy I get emotional because I think of the challenges that they went through. So to me, the things that we go through today seem like nothing. So out of trials comes triumphant strength, is what I'm going to say. So they came from Italy through Ellis Island, like I said, in California in the 1960s. And they have been a really super strong role model of courage in my life. And I grew up as a middle child. I had one older brother and one younger brother. Being the middle child, I think I was one of those typical middle children, curious, asking lots of questions. That might be a lot of kids, but I kind of always felt like the odd duck. And I felt like I had to be tough, especially with two brothers on each side. And that really instilled a resilient nature in me. Some of my fondest memories growing up were listening to stories of my parents and their friends. After a big meal at my mom and dad's house, we would have, every meal was like a 7-course meal. And then afterwards, everybody would go sit together and they'd have their espresso and their dolces, their sweets, and they talk about their lives and their stories. And they shared about how they built their businesses. They shared about properties that they owned and were buying and selling. And I also listened to stories of my mama sharing about her mama, who was a midwife, and how she helped in her community and was truly a brilliant woman, just showing up in life. So my curiosity was piqued all the time about all of these different stories that people had in their lives as I grew. And I kept connected with my family in Italy. I had a cousin whom my parents, to teach me Italian, we would have to speak to each other, which was a pleasure, but also a challenge, because guess what? I didn't speak Italian. I was spoken to. I did speak a little of Italian, but that's how I learned it, just talking to my cousins. And she was my pen pal. So I actually had to learn how to write in Italian, and she would write me back in English. And that went on for years. And all these stories over the years, they inspired me. They inspired my mind, and they stirred in my heart, so much so that in my final years of college, I desired to go back to Italy. I thought, I got to go back to my roots, see what's going on in my family. Why did we follow certain traditions? And when I got back there, my cousins thought it would be really cool, since I was in my 20s. I was the ripe age for marrying someone. And they had a few single friends that their thought was, if Rita gets out here, we can get her married, and then all the family will move back and we'll be back together all again. Well, their plan worked, at least for the most part, because obviously I'm not in Italy right now. I had different plans. I was a planner. I planned that I was going to graduate. I was going to finish college, get this amazing job, have an awesome career, move out on my own, and just live a wonderful life. Well, marrying someone, especially someone from Italy, was actually not in my picture. Actually, because my dad was so strict growing up, I didn't want to have a husband who was really strict. So when I went to Italy, I literally, before I got on the plane, my father was like, don't marry anybody. And I was like, over my dead body, never, ever will I do that again. How many times have you said never in your life and something came about totally unexpected? Well, that's what happened to me. I met the love of my life in Italy. We've been married now 30 years. It has definitely been an adventure, a lot of turns, and living a long distance relationship also had its challenges, right? I remember I had to sneak out to call my husband, and I would go to my college ground and at a payphone put $40 worth of quarters to call in Italy. Just imagine. Crazy. Payphones aren't even around now. I don't even know if my millennials know what that is. Maybe they do. I think so. And so life changed. It was exciting. It was adventurous. And we planned on living our lives together, actually in Italy. And then guess what? We can keep planning our lives, but sometimes there are going to be unexpected turns. And that unexpected turn turned out to be a tragedy. My older brother, whom I looked up to all my life growing up, was gone in an instant. And it just changed everything. It was an accidental death. And all I could think about was how amazing my brother was. He was a go-getter. He was a giver. He had a job. He was a real estate investor. He was a business owner, all at the age of 26. When we'd go out together to Disneyland, we'd be in those long lines waiting. He would turn around, start talking to people and say, hey, my name's Cosmo. What's yours? And just the way he introduced himself and saying his name, people would laugh and smile. He led a life of love. He inspired others, and he was definitely a positive influence. His love of people was so reflected that when it came time for his funeral, this seems like something that would be a sad reflection for me, but it was actually, I got to see the outpouring of love that he gave to others, because thousands upon thousands of people showed up for his funeral. That day, by my brother's coffin, I thought about one thing. What is the legacy he would want to leave? You know, I lived in a culture where when someone passes away, you live a period of mourning. And I just couldn't feel that with my brother. So it was at that time I realized I had a choice: be depressed, live in misery. But that wouldn't keep my brother close to me. I realized I wanted to live his legacy of love, inspiration, and positive influence. The following year, I married that love of my life. And during the journey, we had 2 amazing sons, and they didn't come into this world easy. Each pregnancy, I was really ill. And I mean really ill, deathly ill. One pregnancy worse than the next. The second pregnancy, I was given 5 to 7 days to live in my 7th month of pregnancy. And I just remember thinking about my parents when that doctor gave us that prognosis. And I thought, my parents can't lose another child. My brother can't lose another sibling. My 3-year-old son can't lose his mother. My husband can't lose a wife. And all I thought is, how can I get out of this? And I remember listening to one doctor who said, you know what? If you believe it, you're going to get out of this. We're going to get you strong, but all you have to do is focus. Focus on being able to eat again, because I couldn't eat. Focus on the hope that that new baby boy will bring. Focus on the love of my family. Focus on that day-to-day positive influence that that doctor said, you're getting out of here. And I resiliently bounced back. You know, my son's 22 now, and we named him Angelo at that time, because for me, it was as if an angel was being born. Now, I don't know if he was perfectly an angel all these years, but at that time, it definitely was. It felt like a true blessing. And life was normal over the years as my children grew. And as many parents, I had a strong desire to create a life that had a positive impact on my children, right? We all do. And I realized at one point in my life that there was one area that I was really not educated on, and most of us aren't, and that's money. How do I pass on information about a resource that we use in our day-to-day that's vitally important, that creates a shield of armor to our children? But we weren't taught. So I wanted to teach them how to control their finances. I wanted to teach them that they could take control, make choices to lead their finances and lead their life. So I started to learn. I started reading. I started exploring. And then guess what? Life would take another unexpected turn. This coming January, I get to celebrate 10 years of being a cancer survivor. It was at that time when my sons, one was going to be graduating to junior high, from junior high to high school, and from high school to college. And I just remember thinking, what were my regrets? I didn't remember all the things that I did. I was thinking about all the things that I didn't. So during that time, there was really only one thing I could do, was read. And I started reading books around money and how to create wealth, and know that true wealth starts in our mind, starts in our hearts, starts with good health. Because without those things, without good health, and that's why from time to time you'll hear me or hear from speakers on my show that talk about health, because health is wealth. So once I recovered I made a commitment to educate myself, my sons, and help families around the world learn the options that they had to take financial control of their lives so they could master money and never have it be their master ever again. So today I share authentic stories and I educate and I empower their families, and I get to create a life of love, inspiration, and positive influence from my life experiences. So how many of you were born to lead a life of love, inspiration, and positive influence? And I hope this story today, if nothing else, influences you and inspires you. And with that, I can't even imagine a better point to bring on Heidi. And I want to say hello, Heidi.
Hello.
Hi. And thank you for being here and coming in a pinch.
Thanks for having me.
And I think this story, as I've been thinking about it, I know you know most of it because we've been together for a long time. But to me, you are one of the most resilient people that I know. And I don't know if you're going to mind sharing, but Heidi's mama was my best friend, is I'm going to say she was my best friend and still is, because I believe that even if people are not with us physically, they are with us through their love, inspiration, and positive influence. And Heidi's mama, Lisa, was definitely that for me. She was a high school friend, and we lost her several years ago, and at a young age. And one of the things that did, and I remember a promise she made me make, was to be close to Heidi always. And we got to do that through my life's work, which is one of the biggest gifts ever. And I'm sorry that I'm doing such an emotional thing.
No, it's okay.
But, she's so strong. And I know we're having a little bit of audio technology issues. So I'm going to ask the audience just to bear with us as we go through this. So Heidi, I'm so excited to have you here and sharing today. I think I want to ask you maybe what was a driving force for you, because you've been so strong with your mom's passing over the years, to move you forward, because not only have you worked with me, but now you're launching your own business.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. I think as we work together, we equally learned from one another, right? Bouncing ideas off of one another. And then step by step, we got to move forward. And like now, I think we're really at a time where we're both flourishing, which is super exciting to share. So I'm going to say, from your mom, what's that one, maybe, or a couple points that inspire you or influence you?
I have to say, like, right off the top of my mind is my sister. So I have a younger sister, and I just knew that I had to go through life stronger for her and, like, kind of for the both of us. And she is just, like, the happiest, sweetest little child in the whole wide world. So growing up with her by my side, just I never felt lonely. So that was great. And, like, she's taught me so much. And then I do have a team of women that are always with me. It's like kind of a joke with, like, because you're like one of my good friends too. Every older woman that I know, like, they always say that I have like older women friends, but I do. I learned so much from all my bosses, my coworkers, and everybody. So I grew up with that. When you're around strong women, you grow up stronger too. So I've always had great people around me.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. And I'm going to ask, because I know typically, like, what influences you around the money piece? Because I know that you've like learned about it. Like, what is maybe the curiosity factor, the why you've been really learning about it or involved in it?
I actually just like being around you and being so young working with you. I just kind of picked up on it and just absorbed everything. And like after I've heard Money 101 so many times and like done of all of our wine malts and everything, I just like it sank in and everything has been clicking. And so I've actually repeated so much stuff that I've learned from you just like randomly because I just know it. So I think it's great to know finances, especially, since I have my business. I've learned a lot from you. And I think that's what keeps me really interested in keeping my family up on their knowledge with it, and making sure that everyone's okay, and that they should know just the basics, even because they don't teach us in school. Having gone through high school kind of recently, I didn't learn anything. So if I didn't have you, I wouldn't actually know anything about money.
Thank you. That's awesome. So one of the things that Heidi's referencing, just for the audience, is there are a lot of free workshops and free events. Because I believe it's about giving unto the world, so that there are many resources that they can utilize in their tool belts, right? So some are wine, women, wealth events, women getting together, and then others are leveled up ladies for women in business. A lot of them focus around women. And the reason why is women, I started out by teaching kids, but then I realized that the mamas were the influencers, the primary influencers, the nurturers, right? And so we have these events, and then we have these money one-on-one workshops that my partners do, and they're on my calendar. So they're free, and I'll put up, my website. So if anybody wants to check out one of those, they can go to the calendar and check that out at mamaritamoney.com. Because I think that as we raise our confidence around money, that's where we grow. And once our confidence is up, because if you're not confident, you're not going to make smart decisions. You're going to question yourself. You're going to doubt yourself. You might be paralyzed. You won't move forward. And so together, Heidi and I created this Money Mythbusters slides that I'm going to share with you right now, and give you some tips and books and things like, Secrets of the Millionaire's Mind from T. Harv Eker. There's so much out there. There's so many resources. I just want to be able to share with you so that you can grow confident and feel great around your money, no matter where you're at. This is not just for people who, I'm going to say, there might be people thinking, well, I'm too broke. Well, you're not, because broke could be a mindset. It's not just about the money, because when I had cancer, we depleted all the resources. So I had to start over. I know what it means to start over, deplete all your resources, and get going. But the one thing that wasn't broke was my mindset. And like you said, Heidi, right? So who does Rita hang out with? Well, I started with paying to hang out with multimillionaires and billionaires. And now I actually just get to hang out with them regularly. All of us can hang out with them regularly. We have YouTube, we have books. And when we put that information into our minds, and we're hanging out with the people that we would most like to be like, right? Because money gives us choices. It's not money makes me happy because it's the end all be all. It gives you choices in your life. And so this is why my mission is really to educate over 1 million families within the next 10 years. And I think that's actually kind of long. It might seem like a big goal to people. I think it's going to be easy done in hopefully less than that time frame. So with that, I'm going to start sharing our Mythbusters and give you a little bit of information. So it's how to master your money and flourish, right? So flourish is one of my favorite words. My business is called Flourish Incorporated, and it's just about growing, right? Flourishing. So 5 financial pivoting points. So these PowerPoints is like bust through record. So we're going to cover, and maybe not all of it because of time, but we're going to bust through recurring societal, cultural, and familial and personal myths. So around your money, seeing how we can transform right where we are, asking right questions, and creating our own financial positioning criteria, because that's that checklist. And so we'll go into that and just create a little more clarity. I think that's what's most important, because the clearer we get about something, it's like, I'm going to say, like when we used to drive to the beach when we were kids, my dad, he would say, okay, who's the first one to say Mare. Mare means ocean. It's like the first one to see it. So as soon as we could see, we were going through the Malibu Canyon, driving through the winding road. Who would be the first to see the ocean? You know, and on a foggy day when the marine layer was there, is like, who got to see a glimpse? Who was the first to say it? So the clearer it got, the more excited we got, the more we knew we were going to have a great time. And I want with our money. So transforming where you are and having fun. Well, one of the things that we can make sure to help us to be happy around our money story is around the expectations, right? Setting our expectations and seeing where they're at, right? Am I going to earn $1 million in 1 year? Well, some people are. But my question to those that want to reach that goal in a year is, it was asked by one of our CEOs, what's the highest amount of money you've ever made in a year? Well, if it's only 50,000, that million could be a pretty big stretch, and you might be setting yourself up. So really what it is you can have that million be your stretch goal, but what's your realistic goal? So setting expectations is very important, because one of the things that we do most is beat ourselves up around expectations. So intentions. So what are you going to do? The intentions are, why are you doing this? What intentions? So my intention is to create an educated society, because I believe an educated society is an elevated society. And I think with that, we hear these cliches that are always often true. Rising tides raise all ships. So if we all are elevated and all doing well, that means the economy does well, and it's this ripple effect of goodness. And I think it's time for that to happen. And I'm starting to see that transition as I get to educate people. Contribution. So what are you going to do? What part are you going to contribute? Are you going to set aside time to check out groups to learn about money, if that's what you want to know about? Are you going to read? How are you going to build confidence around that? So what are you going to contribute? How are you going to connect? That's those groups, showing up and hanging out so that you can collaborate with people who can lead you on a path to success. So I love this. Money myth busting. That's a day one. Like, we need to break through our money myths. Our money myths are things that can be societal, cultural, familial, personal, spiritual, and our own self-imposed myths that we put on ourselves. So a societal one would be something like, I'm too young, I'm too young to be successful. Well, there's a 7-year-old who started a business just with recycling, and he was creating like $10,000 a year. That's a lot of money for a 7-year-old to start putting away. And, if you look to the I'm too old, well, one of the oldest millionaires, well, and I'm not talking old money, somebody that's created millions in I'm going to call their better vintage years. At 73, was a business owner who owned a roofing business in Wisconsin. So cultural, my partner manages our money. Okay, so all of us are individuals. If you're going into a relationship, you are still two individuals in one relationship. So you always should have your accounts separate, and you can have a unified account that you do together if you are together, where you're paying bills together and you're splitting things. But sit down, have a money date to discuss it, and create a plan. There was one point in my life where I went to a marriage conference, because 30 years of marriage isn't always easy. There's ups, there's downs, and there was a point where it wasn't so easy. And I decided we were going to go to a marriage conference. So the first evening, they talked about the top 2 things where people land in divorce, the top 2 things that couples fight about and partners fight about. So the first one, it's not money, believe it or not, it's communication. But number 2, right behind it, is money. So Can you imagine communication around money? It's so super important. So when I talk about this as a cultural thing, a lot of us have been raised up in our culture in a society where I'm going to say little girls and little boys watch stories where Prince Charming comes and rescues the gal and they ride off into the sunset. Well, sometimes I've heard it put where they get bucked off on the way there, right? Or they jump off on the way to the sunset. So it's really important to take care of yourselves individually and familial. How many times have we heard, especially as girls, boys do math better? Or maybe you were taught that, I wasn't good at math because my parents never taught me, or I never learned it in school. School becomes a family in the sense because we're there all the time hanging out. So know that money math is super simple math. And so it's a myth that we can bust, because if you can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, that's all you need to know for money math. Personal self-imposed things. So I don't know where to start. There's a really cool book by Jen Sincero called You're a Badass at Making Money. I recommend listening it on Audibles, but if you have children when you're listening to it, I recommend earphones, because sometimes she says things that are a little off culture. But she's trying to distract you, because one of the things that she said, she's like, she's a Sicilian Italian. She says, if I were to put a hit on you and say, you know what, I was going to put a hit on you if you didn't tell me when and where you were going to start around your money, learning around money, would you go get it done? Well, of course we would. If our life depended on it, we would do it. Spiritual. Well, spirituality. So what's important around this is a lot of times we're learning things like money's the root of all evil, but we're not learning the whole picture. We're taking things out of context. So it's really important to make sure that we're learning the true stories, right? It's not about idolizing money. That's where we get most of the negative stories and thoughts from. It's about making it an important and vital resource, just like water and the air we breathe. We need it for our everyday lives. Whether it's money that you have that's directly coming to you or indirectly assisting you. So I want to be clear on that. Or for those people that think the universe is going to provide it by just meditating. No, you have to have an action. There has to be where you're meeting in that universal law of having you flourish around money. And the self-imposed, I don't have time. That is a myth, and it's an accountability factor. So just think a little bit about what that means to you. And as I'm going through this, Heidi, I am going to ask you if you're having any thoughts around any of these things that maybe you experience.
Yes. I just got engaged this weekend for all of you guys. And so it's funny because I literally have been thinking about how money is gonna come into play in my near future, because we do have everything separate. And so I know that you guys, like, you should take care of yourself separately. And then we have talked about like having an account together, but like there's all these things when you were talking about cultural and like being together. So yeah, that's just been like on my mind
And
recently.
you brought up a really good
Yeah.
point. So one of the points is when we're talking about our money, one of the reasons why we argue around money is we each had different upbringings around money, right? Some of us had parents who were total spenders and lived for the day, and others of us had no risk parents and save to the point of not having any fun, right? So those are two really extremes. So you got to find a meeting point. And I always say, when you're going to have that meeting or that coming together, make it fun. Pick a favorite meal. Pick a glass of wine if it's going to calm you both down. And just savor the moment. For me, I always tell people I love chocolate. So anytime I'm actually doing my money to this day, I have dark chocolate or chocolate covered almonds with me every time. So, just make it where it's going to make you feel good, because it is around this openness, this receiving, this expansion and feeling around money that we want to create. Because if we're freaking out and we're stressed out and we're fighting and we're clashing and we get to a point where we don't want to discuss it, it gets really stressful. And as you can see, it becomes very closed. Well, how can I receive if my hands are like this? If I am like this? You want to create an experience where you're open. And so, I'm going to say getting comfortable around it, hanging around it, having more discussions around it, because today money is still talked about less than politics, for sure. Politics, religion, and sex. So, this is the example I use. As a child, anytime I had issues, right, my parents would say we would need to talk about it, right? So we could help resolve the issues. And I did the same with my children. Well, when we're having issues or questions around money, right, it may be that we are earning multiple six figures and we're going, oh my God, how come it's as if I have no money? I don't know where it all goes. I don't know where it's flowing to, and I need help. And then two things come into factor: shame and blame around your money, right? This is a time where you just need to kind of break through. And, if you have that negative little voice speaking to you, you kind of just need to acknowledge them and just say, hey, you know what? It's okay. I got you. Because it's where we're feeling this point of insecurity. And kind of like listen to, I'm going to say the angel and the devil, but the sweet side, that sweet voice that says, or that strong voice that says, hey, you can do this. Hey, you can figure it out. Isn't it interesting that we're worried about this? Let's see how we can figure it out. Be inquisitive. Ask questions so that you can move forward. All right. So what I'm going to do right now, we have an amazing sponsor, and her name is Dr. Lois Frankel. And I'm going to share a little bit about Dr. Lois Frankel. She wrote a couple of books, one of which I have here, but she has a new audio out. And it's an audible on purpose because it's about speaking up. So she has Nice Girls Don't Get Rich. She's, been a sought-out speaker around the world and internationally, and she's renownedly known. And so it's about women speaking up and getting our voices heard. And how do we communicate? So with that, I'm going to let you check out Dr. Lois Frankel's new audible and how you can get it. All right. It's super great because it is about, we all want to be heard. We do want to be understood. And the better we learn how to communicate and share with one another, the better we all evolve and develop, just as I've been saying. So I want to go into a next slide and share a little bit. And a lot of people may have seen this cycle of belief that is created in our lives. So Lois was talking about speaking. A lot of this is about words. So most importantly, the words that we speak actually get heard by us, right? So what are the words that we're choosing? I'd like to say our words are our world. And our words can give birth to things that are so beautiful that the imagination can grow and flourish. Like, just saying words we can picture, right? If I say, we're coming around a winding road down a canyon and we're opening up to seeing the ocean waves coming, those are just words. It's not a picture, but I bet most of you thought of something. And that's a beautiful thought. When we're stressed or nervous or scared or worried, especially around money, some of the thoughts might be, like we're going bankrupt, we're in jail, and we're stuck. So you can either choose your words to build you up and others around you up, because whatever you say and do, each and every one of us is a leader. And as leaders, what we say, people follow, good or bad. So you want to make sure you're not a person that's in leadership of, I'm going to say, killing people's spirits, because words can kill people's spirits. And so importantly, remember, what are the words that you're hearing? I often talk about where I used to have a lot of anxiety, right? And so much so that about 5 years ago, I was going to the doctor. I could not contain my anxiety. I went through a year of side effects, taking drug after drug after drug, to have literally a garbage bag full of medications that did not work for me, only to realize that one day, as I started learning from my mentors and my CEO of Five Rings Financial, hearing this man speak, his name is Mike Wilk, on how to really build confidence around yourself, and just start listening to things like Jim Rohn, and that's ROHN on YouTube. There was one video that I listened to one day while I was out on a walk called Kick the Worry Habit. That was a life changer for me. That was the best dose of medication and healing I could have ever had. Now, was I healed instantly? No. What I did is every night, one of the issues was I would go to bed, and as soon as my head would hit the pillow, all these thoughts started going in my head, all the worries, all the challenges, right? And I would just think, oh my God, if I could only sleep, and I could barely sleep. Finally, I would get to sleep, and then maybe 3 hours later, those voices would come and knock in again, only to wake me up. And I tease, if we could only charge rent to all those negative voices, we would all be millionaires and billionaires at this time. But what we do have the power to do is create that change, because it is about the neural pathways in our brains and that connection. So what did I start to do to create the change? I put, my earplugs in, not earplugs, but earphones in, and listen to Jim Rohn and kick the worry habit over and over again till his words conquered the other words. And I tease that I got to go to bed with Jim every night and wake up with Jim every morning. And my husband was totally cool with it. And you know what? Because it was changing me. The less stress I felt, the less stress my husband felt. And that helped me and my whole family. So I'm going to share this cycle. So I call it the money belief cycle, but it is a belief cycle. So the first thing is the belief. So your belief system, it comes from those stories that have been created. And most of those stories have been created when we were between the ages of 3 and 8. By the time we're 8, we pretty much have our money stories. What do we see? Mom and dad arguing, people yelling at each other around money, no discussion, being shushed, like I was saying, it's not polite, it's not appropriate. And where do we go? So what does that create? Like, I'm going to say part of it creates this, maybe I'm not worthy, and that carried on with me years. That wasn't the intention, but that is what happened. So are we having beliefs that are thoughts that we're indoctrinated with, right? Meaning it's other people's viewpoints and beliefs that are being pushed on us, or are we formulating our own? Like I did with having Jim, I got to choose what were the beliefs that I wanted. And Heidi, do you have any money stories or hangups around money, do you think? Oops, hang on. My little mute button. There we go. There we go.
I knew we just didn't really talk about it growing up, or like they.
Oh, and sometimes things happens with audios. It's okay. It'll come back. All right.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, we just never talked about money in my house, or like it was like kind of just something that we knew we either had or didn't have, but like never really talked about. So it was interesting.
Yep. And it is. It's an interesting topic that we all get to, we all get to, so then we all get thrown in the pot together. So I'm going to say when I interview my groups, if I do a poll of how many people have heard negative stories around money, or arguments, and that's kind of how they grew up, or, things like money's filthy rich, money doesn't grow on trees, whatever those stories were that they grew up with, that's about 70%, which is huge when we're all walking around like that. And maybe less than 10% had positive experience, like money's great, rich people are awesome, they're philanthropic, and I may be conjuring up some feelings for some people because they may not believe that. And then the other percent in the middle just didn't have any discussion like you or I, right? And I'm going to say we're fortunate enough to be able to have where I got this crazy notion that if I started learning, then I could teach the next generation, and that would shift everything. I'm going to say the one thing that I'm seeing that my adult children know more about money than I ever did in my 20s. So it cut the learning curve by about 20 years, which means they will luckily get to retire far earlier. And when I mean retire, I mean they will get to choose that freedom lifestyle that they want as long as they continue on their same path. So I'm super excited for that. But it starts with a belief of if it's possible, right? And when we have people encouraging us in our homes, that's great. And that's why we want to do this in our communities as well. With our belief system, so what happens? We're talking about those thoughts that come into our minds, those words. That first thought, my understanding is somewhere between 60 and 70,000 thoughts that we have, and the majority of them are negative.
Oh, I'm totally opposite. I'm like happy-go-lucky all the time. I think people probably hate it, but
I think we all struggle with it, even if we have a happy-go-lucky personality. So that's the difference between people who are moving forward and have a different focus, right? So your first thought might be negative, but your second thought is the thought that you can control. First one is instantaneous. Second one, you can take control and you can create that change. Because thoughts do create emotions and feelings for which we react or respond, right? Am I going to freak out and worry and stress out? And I'm going to tell you, like when I found out about the show, about my guest canceling tonight, I was a little stressed. The old me probably would have said, oh my gosh, I'm just going to have to cancel it and I can't go through with it. Or I would have been up here shaking and nervous. But you know what? I believe that there's grace in everything and that we can change everything and we can make the best out of what we can do. And all I can do is show up, be here, be present. Tonight's message is for whoever wants to receive it. And these might be things that you already know about, and you may be rehearing them, but there might be a reason that you're rehearing them. For some people, there may be some aha moments and some connective moments, hopefully some encouraging moments, right? Because we get to choose whether we react or respond. And I'm going to say, not doing anything, that inaction, that paralysis ends up being the action of inaction. So what we want to be able to do is respond and go ask those curiosity questions and say, okay, isn't that interesting? What would be my next best move? I love asking empowering questions, and I always write them down all over the place. So what's my next best step? What feeling would I have around that next best step? Or what feeling do I want to have? And how can I create that so that I can move forward? Especially when and that's the whole thing that I did. Like, what can I share? What can I do tonight to give to my audience to start feeling great about money? All right. And so then we move forward. So we create the action steps, right? So if you see my desk, it's full of papers and actually full of books. And actually one of them I want to read from you, to you. So it's called The Miracle Minute by Mary Morrissey. It's one of the first books I had. And she wrote a thing, like a poem called The Magic Word. Earl Nightingale, years ago, created a program called The Magic Word. The whole program was designed to help you discover what the magic word was. Then you had power. What you finally discovered through the program was the magic word was the word attitude. When you finally understood the power of your attitude, you understood the power you could wield. This is a wonderful saying that says, attitude is your paintbrush. It colors the way you see things. I love that quote. So today, let's each recognize that we hold the magic word, and it really is the authority and power with which we see things, the way in which we create our lives. The magic is our attitude. Let us choose carefully, for in that power, there is the power of the day. So it's things like that that I get to pull from and just be impactful. So I will read 15 minutes a day. I'll listen to YouTubes. I'll create these habits. So let me see. One of my other favorite books. Oops. Well, values. Knowing your values is super important. And I'm trying to see. Oh, it's right here. So my other favorite book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. So taking those stepping stones for your habits and creating that life, stacking them little by little. Like if it's exercise, right? So I was trying to figure out what was going to get me motivated. And I started some YouTube videos. I was doing some belly dancing. I was doing yoga. I was trying all sorts of different ones. And actually what started motivating me is I liked doing some weights, it's a little bit of weight training, and started doing some different exercises and went online and started to see that. And it got me, now that I did the weights on my arms, I started doing like dips and presses. And it just was each week or each day, I just layered something on. That builds, our habits builds our character. And in our character, there's actually 6 pillars to our character. There's our integrity. That's a big one for me. Respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. Those are the 6 pillars of character. How do you want to show up in the world? And I have another great book from you. A dear friend wrote. Her name is Dr. Betty Uribe, and it's values, right? Knowing our values, because that will drive us to our destiny and our results. And I'm going to bring us back, bring Heidi back. And bring us back to, so these are some things that I just wanted to share as a starting point. Take any nuggets so that you can move forward on that transformation. Remember, I talked about transforming where you are. It doesn't matter if you don't have any money knowledge or any money basics and you're just learning. Show up, start asking questions, right? Heidi knows I'm the biggest question queen ever. I ask questions from everybody, no matter what, because I know if I have the question, so does somebody else. And I want to be able to share and grow always together. So this is how we transform, little by little. Or you might be that person where money's coming to you and flowing through you. So I think the best thing that I will leave us with today is my money mantra and some mantras that I read pretty much daily. So my money success mantra, and I specifically call it a money mantra, just like anything else, we can have vision for a trip. We should have a vision, what our financial vision to support that trip looks like. I talk about creating a criteria around it. So you're going to have to stay tuned for future episodes to find out about criterias versus plans. Plans are purposely leveraged action now. I love acronyms. but the criteria is what leads you to those actions in that plan that you're leveraging. So we're going to learn about a little bit. And then, so my success mantra, money flows to me easily and effortlessly in abundance from positive resources. And with it, I honor myself, I give praise to my God, and I bless my family, my friends, my community with its surplus. And for those of you if that's too long a mantra, I met someone who was a multimillionaire who told me it's too long. So he told me money comes to me from the north, south, east, and west right now. So you pick. I'm going to leave it with that mantra. I want to bring Heidi back in for having supported me tonight and showing up, because you know what? I think just in showing up, that's 90% of everything. And that's what she does. Heidi is one of the most hardest working. When she talked about Kelly, I know how Kelly feels looking up to Heidi. Kelly's starting to be a young lady now. She's not just a little kid anymore. And so how she looks up to Heidi. Heidi is actually working multiple jobs, and she's launched her business. She is a lot like my brother, but she is my goddaughter. But I couldn't be more immensely proud because I get to see millennials like her every day. I work with them, and I want to make sure that I put Heidi's promotion. Actually, let me make it so that you could see it. And so she has golden hour glitter, for which I made sure to.
I have some too.
I know it's hard with the lighting. But you know what? Have fun with things. Enjoy it. And she has 15% off your entire first order. All you have to type in is my name, Rita. And that's the promo code. Christmas is coming. Holidays are coming.
Yes, we just launched our holiday line Sunday.
You did holiday line?
Yeah.
Right. And it's even just a fun gift to make people feel good. I think, Heidi, what we're going to do? We're going to do an event where everybody gets some glitter that shows up to the event, and they do their best glitter event. So, I'm going to say stay tuned, because life is about being creative, having fun, and feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I spoke a whole lot, and Heidi didn't say a whole bunch, but I want to make sure, Heidi, that if there's anything that you want to share with the audience tonight about anything that we spoke about, please feel free to do that.
I think it's like the funniest thing when you asked me if I had any money stories. I don't specifically have a money story, but I remember growing up, and I don't really know how much money my grandma has. She's by no means rich, but she always told us when she was growing up, she'd pay for something and she'd be like, "It's okay, I'm rich." So she always instilled in us, all of us now, we've grown up, and we'll do something and we'll be like, "It's okay, I'm rich." So that's just an ongoing joke that we have too. But it's her mindset. That's how the way that she is. So it's just funny that all of us have grown up. I'm rich right now. It's okay. So.
Right. So you heard it all out there. We are rich. Seek gratitude. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. I want to say thank you for being here tonight, Heidi. Thank you all for joining us. And you know what? There's no time like the present to feel good about money. All right. And have a wonderful evening. And I look forward to seeing you on the next show in 2 weeks. All right. Thanks, Heidi. Love you.
Of course. Love you too.
All right, love you all. Ciao for now.